Welcome back, everybody, to Be Good Leadership. I am Ronnie Caldwell. So, conversation between a gung ho assistant principal and the calm principal. Gung ho assistant principal comes in and says, "Hey, Mrs. Winterbottom, I'm thinking that, man, we would probably be good if we could move on from Mrs. Winterbottom. I mean, she's really old school teacher. I don't know, I'm just I don't think she's gonna budge either in her style. Calm principal. What? Oh, interesting. So why do you think that? What's leading you to believe that? Well, just every time I'm in their classroom, um, you know, she just talks the entire time. She lectures the whole time, and I don't think she doesn't seem like she's able to budge or do anything differently. Calm principal. Okay. How many times have you been in her class? Um, well, like 3 times. How much time were you in her class each time? Probably about 10 to 15 minutes each time. Did you talk to her about it? Did you ask her any questions? He says, gung ho AP. Yeah. I think the first time I just told her that I noticed, her lecturing most of the time, and then yeah, and then the next 2 times I just wanted to see if if she was doing the same thing, and she was the other 2 times I went in. So, calm principal. So we've been 3 months in school. You've seen her 3 times, 15 minutes apiece, and you gave feedback 1 time. He goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, did you? And the calm principal says, well, did you ask if you could come in at a time where she's engaging a bit more with kids, where there's a little bit more back and forth? No, I didn't do that. And the calm principal's like, okay, okay. You might want to. I mean, because who knows? I mean, she teaches in 90-minute blocks. So there could be those times, and you just want to be sure about that. He goes, the gung ho AP is like, yeah, sure. He goes, well, all those other times, did you give feedback each time, or did you write anything, have a conversation or put anything in writing? No, I didn't, says the gung ho AP. Okay. Well, maybe why don't you send her an email today, or maybe go by and say, hey, I'd like to come and see, when there's a bit more like interactive, like I've seen you. Is she good at lecturing? The gung ho AP. Yeah, actually, her lectures are good. It seems like that she knows her thing there. It's kind of old school. She seems very comfortable in her lectures. Column principal. Okay. Well, put it to her like this. Say, hey, I've seen your lecture. You're really good at that. I got that. I would like to see a little bit more like some of your questioning, or sort of how you go about engaging the kids and stuff like that once the lecture is over, or if you do interactive lecture, could you invite me in at some point like that? And just ask her. Gung Ho AP. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. It happens so much that a gung ho AP doesn't have a calm principal. And oftentimes, what we do is case build instead of some of the real work that it would take to learn about what our teachers are actually doing, what they're capable of doing, and if adjustments are needed. And I was a gung ho AP. I've been in that situation before. I think one of the things that I learned very quickly when I became an AP and started to see people's classes, like, wow, teachers are effective in a lot of different ways. But it took me a little bit because at first, kind of thought that I knew, especially in my own subject, this is how it should go. People should teach it the way I teach it because that's the way you do it, because I was good. But what I had to learn is that there were other teachers who were at least just as good as me, if not better, in different ways, in different styles, and had different approaches. But I needed to be able to see that. I needed to ask about those things. And I think one of the most important ways in which we learn, I think that the administrator is actually in one of the positions to become a true expert on pedagogy if they take seriously class visits and conversations. Because so much of the time, I know so many administrators I've worked with who are like, I wish I had been able to see more teachers teach, or who believe, man, if I went back in the classroom, I could probably be a better teacher just because I've been able to view so many different teachers. And very few teachers actually ever get into the classrooms of other educators and learn from them in a peer setting or a lesson study. And so when we come in as administrators, oftentimes we don't even actually know what good teaching in different places looks like. We go through a class, we might watch a video, do what we got to do to get the degree in educational leadership, if you will. But how do you actually speak to someone? How do you actually learn more about their classroom through an observation of it? Is lost on us because we haven't actually practiced that skill. And then when we become administrators, we don't make it enough of a responsibility to go and do that. And oftentimes what happens is we end up case building. And what I mean by case building is we see something and we just decide automatically, okay, depending on what the trend is at the time in your particular district or what have you, that person's lecturing. And then it's like, okay, that's really, really old school. I wish they would stop that. Or that person is sitting at their desk, all the time. Or I don't see many checks for understanding. Or, you know what? It's never clear what exactly the objective is, or at least I'm not clear on it. But they don't take the steps to find out if they could be wrong. One of the ways to not case build is to assume as an administrator that just start with the assumption that your teachers are doing what they're supposed to be doing, are doing quality work. You've got to find out when you can see it. And you've got to find out from them when they do that work. So instead of you have a teacher, I don't see them, I haven't been able to see them do any checks for understanding, ask and say, hey, I'm wondering, I would love to come in at a time when you're sort of going back and forth with kids, you're asking kids questions or how you check for understanding just to see that process. When can I do it? Great. Lecturing, do you do an interactive lecture, and how often do you lecture, or what does it look like when it's time to not lecture? What kind of things do you have the kids doing? Could I come back and see that? It's the assumption that they're not lecturing for the entire period all the time. They're doing other things. What are those other things? Could I come and look at those things? It's having an actual conversation with teachers. And there is a way to escalate counseling if feedback has been given. So you've come, you've done that, you've seen it, and you're saying you're still seeing consistent things. You've actually gone into the class more than 3 times in a month, which I will say for that gung-ho AP, that's a lot compared to many of the people who I talk to about how often they actually get into classes on a consistent basis. Because if that AP actually got into that class once a month, that would mean by the end of the school year, he had probably seen that teacher 10 times for 15 minutes apiece, which would be a lot for a lot of teachers and would be a lot that would put him in the top 1% of administrators. If that was actually how much he was actually able to get in to a teacher's classroom. That being said, if he does that and he's had these conversations and he's still not able to see what he needs to see, then there is an escalation. Because then what you got to find out is, are students actually still learning though? So then you're trying, how are kids doing in the classroom, right? Are they learning? Because you might not be seeing something, but maybe they're still getting through to the kids. Take that into consideration because that's actually the most important thing more than anything else. And also, if the feedback is being given. Oftentimes we don't give actually any feedback. In this case with the gung-ho administrator, he had talked a little bit the first time and then said to the calm principal that the next couple of times he went in, he just wanted to see if he would see the same thing. He was trying to catch someone over time. And too often what this does is, in teaching, it doesn't even lead to an action plan. It just leads to a deterioration of our perception of the people who are working in our building without ever actually interaction, conversation, or any deep learning on the part of either person and no trust being built. So when we find ourselves being that gung-ho AP, it's this idea of building up the amount of times we go into a classroom, the amount of times we're being explicit and asking about what we would like to see. Ask to see it. Ask to see it. In the assumption that you're not doing anything extra, I'm sure this is happening already. Just tell me when's a good time to come by. Just want to see it. And then when you see it, say, hey, it was a good thing, ask more questions about it, what have you. The questions will come up, but it's getting to know what the teachers are doing. It's getting to know them. That's the first step. Because as you do that, then any feedback that you have that might be corrective, or you might say, hey, a little bit more of this, a little bit less than that, it's more likely to be listened to and trusted because you've built up that credibility and that teacher knows you've actually seen something about it. You've had a conversation with them. They know what you've been looking for. The gung-ho administrator, the gung-ho AP is very common. And what we need is ambitiousness. We need a little bit of humility, lower the ego, to accept that I don't know what the best teaching looks like. I'm learning that. I'm going to figure it out. And it looks different ways, which makes it complex. But then a high drive to be better. So at the same point in time, this low ego, but I want to get better at my craft, at what I am doing first. And so that's the first thing for any leader, especially the young leader, to figure out, how do I get better at this craft? How do I do the things first that I'm supposed to do? How do I find out what I need to find out and get better at before I think to myself, how do I just grade someone? Because that's what we try to do. We get into it and we start to try to grade a teacher. But before you start grading a teacher in any way, shape, or form, make sure that we're actually getting better at the craft. And the only way to do it is to practice it. Check the gung-ho administrator and leader inside you and replace it for a little while with a humble one and one who's driven to get better at their craft, and you'll be a better leader. I hope this was helpful. You guys have a wonderful day and be good.